Good evening and welcome to the October 27th, 2016 meeting of the Radnor Township Environmental Advisory Council. We have a time limitation today, so we're going to shuffle around our agenda a bit. But the first order of business that's not even on our public agenda is to introduce our newest member, Jim Quinn. Jim, welcome. And we look forward to working with you. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind just taking 30 seconds or so and just give us a quick little bit about yourself.
Sure. I've been a Radnor resident since 2009. Worked at Villanova. Moved to Radnor for my job at Villanova. I've been involved in environmental work to one degree or another since graduating college 2003. Mostly nonprofit, wetland, stream restoration, and science. Currently doing environmental consulting for industries, regulatory compliance type work. That might even be under 30 seconds.
I didn't mean 30 seconds, but what type of regulatory compliance?
Specifically, we do, it's called LDAR. It's basically fugitive emission controls for mostly the oil and gas industry. So finding and quantifying and eliminating leaks.
Leaks.
Yeah.
I got you. Mm-hmm. Okay. Very interesting.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, it's great to have you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I don't have any exciting announcements for today. There was a nice article on the Pennsylvania Environmental Council website that if you're bored, you could check out. It talks about Pennsylvania's state greenhouse gas reduction action plan and how they're doing toward their goals, which they haven't announced yet. They're similar to us. So check it out if you have time. Anybody have any announcements they want to put on here? So what I'd like to do now is introduce Gretchen Grobel. She's the executive director at Radnor Conservancy. Gretchen reached out to us a couple of days ago with a concerned resident. The resident was concerned, I should say, about bamboo and its, shall we say, aggressiveness or invasiveness, and was wondering if the township had ever considered taking a stance on it one way or the other. Gretchen introduced us to some other townships, the ways other townships have approached it. And I forwarded it around to everybody. Oh, okay. Various ordinances from neighboring townships and whatnot. But anyway, I'll stop there and I'll let Gretchen, if you don't mind,
Sure.
clicking the mic on and give us a little background.
Can you help me? Is it on?
Yeah, I think it's on, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you for having me here tonight. So I had a phone call this week from a Ravenscliff resident, Liz Negri, and I guess she had contacted the township over a year ago with concerns of her next door neighbor planting over 120 plugs of bamboo to help screen. He didn't want to see her backyard or her deck or her backyard garden. It obviously is just very invasive, and it grew very quickly and into her yard. So she was very upset about it. And I guess after numerous contacts to the neighbor, he did agree to try and remove it. She doesn't think that it's all gone. So I'm sure there's still a little more digging to do there. So that's really all that I know about that. So it just made me kind of question, where we stand, from an ordinance position. I did a little research trying to find out what surrounding Delaware County townships are doing, and it looks like a number of them have adopted, I mean, I have a list of Pennsylvania bamboo ordinances, and I think there's Bristol, Chadds Ford, Doylestown, Edgemont, Haverford, Middletown, Rose Valley, Rutledge. I'm not sure if Swarthmore has one yet. West Bradford Township. So these other townships have adopted ordinances going back from 2010. So it's 2016. I think it's time that we really take this seriously, because it is an invasive non-native plant, and it really takes over all understory growth in its path, and it wipes out all natural habitat. Nothing really feeds in there, and nothing. It grows to 30 feet tall, so birds aren't kind of nesting in that.
Gretchen, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I think it's an interesting issue, and I was particularly interested to hear the episode by by Liz that you mentioned, because that, I mean, I think that's, I would have thought in a sort of in a vacuum without that story that who's going to plant bamboo these days? Everybody knows it's invasive, it's out of control, and to hear that somebody actually did this.
Well, a nursery, a local nursery did.
The nursery itself did, or
the owner was working with a nursery, and a local nursery planted all.
Well, they were hired by the owner.
They were hired by the owner,
right.
And they planted.
Okay.
So.
Because a nursery is obviously in business to sell plants.
Correct.
So I'm sure they would know what the rules are and check and make sure
Right.
okay, it's permitted. And maybe to your point, maybe this is one reason there might need to be some sort of rule about where you can do it. And I didn't look through
or not do it.
or not do
Right.
it. But I guess my first question would be, is there any way to tell whether this is a really kind of a unique situation where this one person, this one neighbor is doing something that who in their right mind would do? I don't know if...
Well, I mean, I think it would be interesting to document. I mean, just in my kind of... path of traveling around the township, and I think it would be important to, stop and document where there are, large stands of bamboo that are right up to the road, that are encroaching on other people's property, and I can probably name 3 or 4 just on my normal path to, where I go during the day.
One of my neighbors struggled with that similar sense. It was right on the property line. We should make it clear that this is a prohibition against running bamboo. There are types of bamboo that clump. They form clumps, and they do not spread by rhizome.
Good point.
It's interesting. I breezed through the Haverford ordinance, and it essentially bans the planting of it, but if you already have plantings of it, it does take that into account, and it provides means to...
Correct. It kind of grandfathers you in, and you still are responsible for
managing it.
For managing it, or
like
responsibly disposing of it.
Right. It talks about keeping it from traveling to within 40 feet of a public road. It talks about keeping it from going onto your neighbor's property.
Right.
And there's ways of doing that. You have to dig down 30 inches or so and put a underground wall and stuff in, a barrier. I haven't read any of the other ordinances. This is the only one I looked at.
You know what, I thought the Haverford ordinance was very clear and concise, and I'm trying to, I didn't bring it with me, but the Chadsford Township, it seemed a little bit more involved. It allowed people to plant the running bamboo, but in containers in the ground. And I just liked the Haverford because it didn't go in, it didn't have that additional level of, okay, why, if we're not going to allow, let's just not allow the running bamboo to be planted. Yeah. Rather than muddy the waters about, okay, well, you can plant it in a container, and who says that it won't, breach the container somehow?
Right. Yeah.
I wanted to just read two things that Steve Norsini sent out. One was that in the past, the way that they've dealt with it here at the township was he would send our arborist out to make contact with
and
the.
Mr. Hosbach did go see Mrs. Negri's next door neighbors, and he was astonished. I don't know what his follow-up was with within the township, but he did kind of witness all of this.
Because if there were only a handful of episodes, every couple of years or something like that, that would seem like a reasonable way to approach this, where you go talk to somebody and you say, well, this stuff either has to come out or you have to manage it. But if you don't have the ordinance, there's no teeth to back that up, right? So.
Right. And, I think in the sort of exercises, the exercise of considering an ordinance, I think that's a pretty effective but a fairly, that's a strong reaction, and I'm just wondering, to build the case for an ordinance, as opposed to what Steve's already doing, going out and talking to folks, and maybe as opposed to posting, we could post information out to the township site, which I think he's expressed a willingness to do. Maybe, your organization could do as well, education, that sort of thing. Right. To build the case for an ordinance, I think we'd have to say, here's some facts about how it's not just one unfortunate incident. It's happened. It's continuing to happen. I mean, hearing, maybe one source of information would be, we could reach out to a nursery or several nurseries and say, who's buying it? Who's buying it? How is this? Is this a special order?
There's a company. I think they're in Malvern, but it's a bamboo company. They sell and they grow and sell bamboo. But they also, a big part of their business is removing bamboo.
It's a good business. Both sides. But no, so they are both selling. Now, do we know if they're selling the invasive or the?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so they may be selling the stuff that's actually fine. It's
sure.
clumping. It's not spreading, and taking out the stuff that's not. But they might be a good source of information, like, are they getting inquiries? Are they, I just find it surprising that any nursery would sell this.
They do. I mean, it's and we wait a couple of years. I mean, the stands that are within our township now, they're gonna, triple and quadruple in size, and then, it's only going to become more problematic, especially for, if we're putting in trails and we've got to, dig out, or if we've got any kind of, DOT work that's near, stands of bamboo. It's another level of public works.
I think to your point about disposal, I'm not a bamboo expert by any stretch, but I did have it in my yard growing up, so I had to keep it from going to my neighbor's yard every single spring. But it's not like it grows by seed or something like that, where you have to worry about the dropping seeds as you're disposing it. I would think our existing township grinder mulching kind of way of doing things would probably be okay, I would think.
I don't know. I spoke to a landscape designer and company, Terran Landscaping, and they're managing a property that we have a conservation easement on. And the new owners, they inherited a stand of bamboo, and so that's been part of the discussion, how to manage that or get rid of it. But ideally, they said they burn it. So, but there are herbicides, but
Sure,
we
sure.
have to be really mindful of what's downstream of the stand of bamboo. Is there?
Well, Sloan, you missed this part of the discussion early on, is that we are really penned in for time tonight.
Oh, right.
So we're not going to have the
Yep.
ability to completely discuss this out to its conclusion. But I think you could say you would have the support of this board in terms of moving this topic forward. And if the end game is an ordinance, we would definitely support that.
Okay.
But I think I agree with Sloan's idea that maybe just a little bit of information gathering
Okay.
could really bolster
Yeah, I'm
our approaching the
happy
council.
to document some of the familiar stands of bamboo that I know, and also I'll contact some of the local landscape companies and the grower out in Malvern.
That would be great.
That'd be great.
And Liz's story is very compelling, so I think.
And I'm sure
her involvement would be very helpful.
It's not the only story.
Yeah.
Sure, sure. And maybe one of us could contact Haverford and see if they've ever had to actually enforce this code.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, thank you.
I'm just going to leave this.
Oh, thank you, Gretchen. Thanks for coming in. And we welcome you guys here anytime you
Yeah.
want. We'd love to have you here.
And yeah, we'd love to hear on other topics, including the trails. I know you're involved with that, so
All right,
please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
So we're basically scratched out our agenda here, and what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, I'm going to jump to Sloan, if you wouldn't mind. If we have about 10 minutes to talk about the Sustainable Pennsylvania Community Certification.
Happy to.
If you could just take it a step back.
Yeah.
Sorry, Skip.
5 seconds.
Yeah, please.
Turn your-
Please.
That's for just us.
Oh.
There's a Pontiac Vibe out in the parking lot with lights on.
All right. I can do it.
All right, turn your headlights off and
That
come
was-
back in, Jim.
Very timely.
All right, Sloan, go ahead. Take it
Yeah,
away.
so we have been talking about how to energize our efforts around the various greenhouse gas action plan and other green initiatives to really rally support both at the township level and, frankly, within the staff at the township. We've had success in the past with the green team, although it's a little bit of in a bit of a lull, and so we've been trying to think, how do we get that re-energized? And Sally, our former colleague on the EAC, had recommended a certification program for communities, and wanted to take a look at that because upon looking at it, it really looks like a nice way to set some goals and really a roadmap to things that would be objective goals that we could strive for. And then I think we could, what's nice about the proposal that the group that she mentioned, they set sort of levels like the LEED certification. So it's the same concept. You have like bronze, silver, gold, so you can, as you get traction as a township, you can sort of move up and get, have more accomplishments, and maybe strive to get, a higher and higher level of certification, starting with a fairly modest and then moving up to some really pretty impressive levels. So that's the background. Anything we should add? I think it's just sort of a kind of a way to build on the Greenhouse Gas Action Plan, which had been a large part of our sort of organizing approach for the last several years. I think this sort of carries it to the next step. Is that a fair?
Yeah, I think it's a very yes or no kind of a
Yeah.
kind of a certification
Yeah.
thing, right? There's 8 dozen boxes you check, yes
Right.
or no, and you
That's
get
right.
and you get points for each box.
Right.
1 to 8 points, whatever, and you could apply within a month of getting this application and go for like the lowest,
Yeah.
the bronze membership or whatever, and then work on it, as you said, over time and increase step it
right.
up. And it does require buy-in, though, from the
It
board
does.
from the Board of Commissioners, right?
I agree.
They need to have. Actually, I think it doesn't have to, but it's actually one of the boxes you check. Has the Board of Commissioners said, I don't know what it is, what they require, but it's.
Right.
It does feel like it's something that we would want to come
Right.
from the top down.
I think that's right. And I think it would be the kind of thing that, would be a really cool goal for the township, and something, you can put the seal, the certification out on your public, website and on, other places people can see there's a real community commitment. Shall I just read the little brief blurb of what it is? It's the Sustainable Pennsylvania Community Certification is intended to recognize local governments in Pennsylvania for deploying the policy and practice of sustainability for their community's prosperity. Municipal managers are invited to complete an online assessment, blah, 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 various levels of achievement from associate, so 1 to 34 points, and we'll go into what the points are, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and, to the point of what are they looking for? There are several pages of what they're looking for, so it's not just we're green town, we support green things. It's down to things about the funds for capital-related borrowing are not used for day-to-day expenses. That's actually sort of a general good government approach. So it's a fairly broad list, not all just clearly environmental items. You don't have to check every box, but so there's a list. Oh, and here's one of interest to us. Green vehicle fleet assessment has been initiated toward using greener fuels and/or vehicles. Vehicle right sizing for the job and the trip, retrofit or replace older diesel trucks or equipment with cleaner technology, or driver education about driving techniques for fuel economy. That's very much in line with what we've been working on for quite a while, and I think it's so it's a nice blend of sort of good practice and environmental initiatives. I won't take our limited time going through all of them, but I think it's really well worth looking through. I don't know if anybody had any reactions. Skip.
I've noticed that Philadelphia is a gold city.
That's a very good point. They're obviously a big city, but has been able to really go through and get a lot of points on these criteria. I can't remember. There were.
If you click on the city, they show you their application.
Oh, good. That's great.
In effect, what they've achieved by category.
That's great. I looked for neighboring townships. I didn't see any of our neighbors.
Westchester.
Westchester was the closest. Doylestown was on it, but so clearly achievable.
Things like having a professional review your budget,
which we,
as opposed to an elected official alone, let's say.
right, right. So what was your, I mean, your take
I
on
think
the
I get the, I'd say it's half
environment-
best practice
best practice, right?
government.
Right. So, it's
Which is
interesting.
okay.
It is okay. It does raise the question, I mean, and I think it's a good thing, but you could get a fairly high level of sustainability by checking the sort of good government boxes and not necessarily what I think of as the green or the environmental boxes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's good or bad.
And you can't do everything. Sometimes there's budgetary constraints. I think one of the green vehicle boxes was accelerating your retirement of vehicle schedule so that you not just retrofit, you replace.
Right.
But that depends on
Budget.
the budget.
Right.
I wanted to mention that I clicked on the button where you start your submittal online, and it basically asks you for that you're the manager of the municipality, and your ID and your password, and it allows you to get started right away. And I was wondering, maybe we could ask Bob Z if we could use his, put his email in there, and they would send him an ID and a password. And if he would let us work on his behalf to start working through it, see how far we get, see what comes out of it, and maybe when we go to the Board of Commissioners, we could say, well, we've peeked at it, and we think that we can achieve a blank certification right away.
I mean, I don't know about the password. I think, we might be able to just sort of work with him or his staff and sort of do an eyeball and say it looks to because they give you the points. It looks like we're already at silver, and with a couple of things, we could be, something like that. But I like the idea of, trying to make it as doable as possible, and offering to help the township staff, work on this. But I think, first question, how does the EAC feel about it? Does it seem like it's a good?
Thoughts down that end?
I was just wondering how much cooperation do you think you need from other departments? It seems easy enough to click the boxes, but is that something you could just do on your own, or do you need to talk to, there's a lot of finance stuff on there. Do you need to include those people and get them on board?
I think that's a good point, and it may require us to convene. We do have a green team in place. It may be that this could be a nice project we could work with them on and say, we'll get them in a room, we'll sort of work through it, and have at least a rough draft of what the answers look like.
And it is something you could probably say, well, we've got this much that gets us in the door, and then invite other people to participate and say, with your help, we can get to this next
Right.
level. And
They
keep
might
bringing in
also
more
say-
and more people
right,
and get higher and higher.
Exactly. They might say, we're not doing this, but this looks very doable. Or, forget about that other one because we tried it and it didn't go anywhere. So I think that would be nice. Here's where we sort of kind of think we are right now. That translates to this level. And here's what we think are doable goals that would get us to the next level. Which is, I think, one of the nice things about this approach, because it's filled with, I think, some good suggestions.
Yeah, I was going to say, I like this as kind of a roadmap to some of the things we might prioritize. Sloan, do you see any other benefits of getting a certain level of certification in terms of access to funding or
Yeah, I mean,
other
that's a good
opportunities?
point. I think there was reference to some grants and some other, I think there were some grants that were available depending on your level of certification. So there may be a financial benefit to the township of, oh, we're silver, we're gold, or whatever. There may be grants that either helps you get, or maybe just are plain not available unless you are at that level. Certainly something we should do a little more work around, because that helps justify the time and effort put in. But good point.
It's a great segue.
Didn't you have a conversation with Phil Ayer? Did he ask for something like this?
He did.
Or-
We did have a discussion with him, and he didn't point to this, but he said, one way, let's, you know, are there ways to motivate the township to, you know, with an achievement or an award? So I think this is very much in that
I
spirit.
think, you know, Phil could influence the township staff,
He could,
you might say,
he could.
or at least the commissioners could.
Well, you know, we agree, I think this seems in line with that suggestion. And if we have the, you know, the support of the EAC, I think we would.
Well, I think we could say that you have the support of the EAC. I guess what's the next step? Because I want to talk about the grant that Matt brought up to our attention.
Should we?
What do you think we should do?
Well, why don't we do a little more work on, you know, the pros and cons of doing this, and then I think maybe we should contact the, you know, to Phil, see if this is in line with what he was talking about, and then maybe reach out to the township staff, the green team. But
I see
course.
him, I'm friendly with Phil, so I would.
oh, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, maybe we can, you know, maybe we can sit down with him and describe it and just get his take.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't we think about that?
Phil was on the trail open space thing. Of course, he just recently got elected, and the Garrett Hill Improvement Overlay District and all that. He's been very active for years.
Good. Well, why don't I'll draft up an email to, I guess, to him with this information, and
you,
we'll.
you can mention that, you know, I'd be happy to talk to him with you.
Good. Okay.
Sure.
I mean, I think it makes sense on multiple levels than just the AAC.
I think that's right. It's
And there's been a lot of new people, somewhat more than normal, let's say, on the Board of Commissioners, and they may be looking to dig into this.
I agree.
And full circle, the way we've gotten into our greenhouse gas action plan was from a 2006, I want to say, Board of Commissioners vote. Since 2006, there has been quite a turnover, right?
Yeah.
So to keep pushing our agenda of achieving these greenhouse gas action plan goals becomes more and more difficult, because they're like, well, you know, that wasn't my baby.
Right.
I didn't start that. You know. So.
That's right.
All right, so we have a couple more minutes left, and I want to devote the rest of that to talking about the grant application that Matt and Beth brought to our attention. I believe it's the same grant that we were discussing.
It's the same one, that's why we pursued it. Yep.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so I'll just introduce it. It's a grant for citizen science water quality monitoring project. And you have prepared a letter of intent, right?
Correct.
So take it from there.
Yep, so thanks. Beth and I put together an initial one-page description of the project that we're thinking about putting together. We've had some conversations with folks at the watershed program at the middle school, as well as a couple of people from the Darby Creek Valley Association about, you know, potential projects. We knew that we wanted to explore something around water quality, because that's something that the DEP really emphasizes in their grant materials. So we thought that might be sort of a low-hanging fruit kind of thing to pursue. And from what I understand, this is not an area that I know very much about, but it sounds like there are some simple test kits that we can get that aren't very expensive, where we could get school children out and test local creeks for chemical stressors, and also look at macroinvertebrate counts to see if we can get a rough assessment of stream health. The idea is to get kids involved in a real science project where they're actually using accurate field methods and getting a sense of how science actually works. And we may be able to connect this with a larger project where we can actually send some data in through a website, and that gets compiled and reported along with national data. So that to me gets me excited, because it's an opportunity to get kids involved in something that really can make an impact. These kinds of projects have been talked about by the EPA as really, you know, kind of a really important resource and a groundbreaking opportunity for them to monitor the health of the streams throughout the country in real time. You can take samples throughout the year. There are a number of different things you can test for: pH, water clarity, conductivity, things like that. And we'll need to narrow that down a little bit, but there are a number of folks that are interested in helping us with that process. So I think we've got a good shot at getting something off the ground here.
Are you in touch with Banny Ackerman at the?
Yes, indeed. She's been a good correspondent and has provided some good insight, as has John Savage, one of the other teachers over at the middle school.
Well, those are terrific partners for something like this.
I agree, and they've got a lot of experience doing this kind of thing, so they'll be able to help us. And they also suggested the middle school students might be able to mentor some of the younger kids. So this was initially thought of as an elementary school program. We're also in connection with the Science Fair Committee, which I'm on over at Wayne Elementary. So we're thinking about kind of blending this in with some of the Science Fair activities as well. So a fairly big network of potential supporters for this, and we'll see how far we get, see what the interest level is.
Excellent.
So this letter of intent, which the draft you had circulated around last week, and that's been submitted?
Yes, I submitted that today, and there's a part of the grant process where if you submit a one-page summary of your project, they'll get back to you pretty quickly with feedback to help with the grant proposal process. So the actual application is due early December, so we've got a few weeks to fine-tune it, and if we get a little bit of feedback from that group, we'll incorporate that and try to make the application a little bit stronger.
And have you taken a look at the grant application itself?
A little bit. There are a number of different forms that need to be filled out. I'm not totally on top of that right now, but I've got all the materials on my laptop, and I'll work through those in the next few weeks.
I mean, ask Dan. They can be challenging.
Oh, I'm sure they can.
So if you need to spread the burden out, you just need to let us know, because I think we're talking about, our next meeting is the first week of December. It's a week into December already, which is close to the due date, right?
Yep, that's probably right on top of the due date.
So I guess you're just going to need to be able to communicate with us offline.
Yep. And I think
by email.
asynchronously would be the best way to do that. So I'll certainly be in touch.
Okay.
Thanks for the offer, and if I get stuck, I'll reach out for help.
Would it be helpful if you had a resolution of support right now? Is that helpful to you, or is it?
Sure thing. I mean, this is supposed to be something that goes in on behalf of the township and on behalf of the EAC.
Okay.
So, yeah, if there's a way to kind of solidify support, that would be helpful.
Okay. Well, would you take a shot at formulating just a simple resolution right now? I mean, is it, you're familiar with the grant, so if you propose one, we could.
Sounds good. So I move to propose that we vote in support of a citizen science water quality monitoring project as part of an application to the DEP for grant support.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 That was very fastest resolution of all time.
That is awesome, man.
Hey,
That was well done.
That's great, and that.
all about efficiency.
But you have to get it in the minutes, too.
Yes, I tried to.
I'll have to go back and
You'll
do
be able to
that
write it down.
afterwards.
If you need help with the application, let me know.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Jim.
Yeah, so a great meeting in that we have a lot of new stuff to talk about. And Jim, again, welcome. And if there are any of the things that we've discussed you find interest in, or any of us feels like you're ready to fill your plate with another thing, another topic, another little project, let me know so I can form these little work groups and keep you busy. This is good stuff.
You have time for a very brief?
We have time.
planning?
We have
Planning?
time. Yeah.
Okay.
And then if Jim Dolan comes out and kicks you out, then kicks you out.
This will be quick. There's three things, but the two that are most germane to the EAC, the commissioners approved a recommendation of Planning Commission to go from 35 to 50 feet, 50-foot riparian buffer in the new PLO overlay district with the biomed site. And the Planning Commission just got from Steve Norsini notification that the AMA is putting out new guidelines for LED streetlight replacement to reduce the amount of blue light that is in the particular bulb that's in use. And the ordinary thing is that 800 Goshen Road is the subject of a lawsuit by the township to prevent the development of the parcel because the township deems it to have been open space, or dedicated open space years ago. That's off near Montparnasse. So that's my really fast summary. It was a short meeting too, the September meeting, but
There's some juice in that too. I mean, we're talking riparian buffers and light quality.
I know, good stuff.
You know, it's interesting, the DEP is looking for 100-foot riparian buffers, yeah. Yeah, so, well, 50 feet's better than 35, so that's good. Okay, well, I guess we'll adjourn the meeting.